Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Now, as you might have heard, a U.S. district judge has agreed to stay an order directing Chicago State University to make available President Tinubu's academic records to the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. It follows a plea by Mr. Tinubu's lawyers that it will cause severe and irreparable harm to him. A magistrate had on Tuesday ordered the university to release President Tinubu's academic records to Atiku within 48 hours to enable him prove that Mr. Tinubu should not have been allowed to take part in the 2023 presidential election because he allegedly forged his Chicago State University certificate. But in a fresh emergency application, President Tinubu's lawyers asked the district courts to delay the release of the documents till Monday and had suggested that their release would cause the president severe and irreparable harm. So what on earth are they talking about? Why is the president so keen not to have his academic records made public? Well, to get their thoughts on this and other issues of the day, I'm joined now in the studio by our guest commentators, the public policy analyst, Chibuzor Okereke, and the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Bayes University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Thank you very much indeed to both of you for coming in. Let me come to you, Chibuzor, first, because you're really the guest. I mean, he's a member of the House, isn't he? What do you make of this issue around the release of President Tinubu's academic records?
Well, I think it's a number of issues. One, I think, is also a battle between legality, personal privileges, public interest, and political survival. Now, I don't think our laws, imagined a situation that we have now. Because we've had cases in Bayelsa and other places where this sort of allegation led to people, losing their seats. So it opens us also to the lacunas under our laws. Now, you will agree that, ordinarily speaking, the president should be willing for his academic records to be out there, even though he doesn't need a university qualification to contest for, the presidency, just school cert certificate. But there are a number of issues. In America, for instance, if this were happening there, it's a matter of national security. Because right now, whether the president releases the results or otherwise, it is still a matter of issue. Because if maybe something is wrong with the result, that could be used as an exploitation point for both the presidency and the country.
And it could have implications for Nigeria.
Especially at the time we are crying about neo-colonialism, and this happens, then a lot will go in. Then also, if the president decides to release it, but right now that he's making a plea that is going to come and cause an irreparable harm to him, that is also a pointer that I think our last guest mentioned that we can only wait till Monday to ascertain the level of irreparable harm, which is the point I made about political survival. Because right now, the person that is challenging him is on the point of qualification and not the vote that he has garnered. Because if something is wrong, his 8-point-something million votes will simply go down, the drain. So I think he's fighting for political survival, but it speaks to the kind of challenge we have with our leadership recruitment process. You could imagine that a party interrogated this certificate, certified the president to be fit to run. The same certificate we are talking about now has been presented to INEC under oath, right? And right now, the university is saying we can't accept this result, or rather present it under oath. So something is wrong, but we can only wait for the judicial.
It certainly raises questions, Prof. But on the other hand, because it is our job to remain balanced
as much as possible.
On the other hand, I mean, when the president, we're not just talking about a certificate. We're talking about academic records. So you could see Could you? The reason that perhaps the president would not want his academic records to be released to the public.
Yeah, Charles, academic record, asking for academic record.
I mean, you're an academic.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
what I'm
tell
trying
us.
to.
Right.
Yeah, it's quite an unusual request, really. Beyond you just asking me for my certificate, if you ask for my certificate, for instance, from maybe you from University of Leeds, I can easily give it to you. But when you now say no, you are not satisfied with that. You want some of that details.
Leeds,
you know, yeah, I did.
That's a good university.
Thank you very much. You know, that you want the details. You know what I scored, what I did not score. Maybe how I failed one course and maybe passed it later. You know, and some of the details, maybe the comments of professors or lecturers on some of my essays. Those details. You know, sometimes professors may be very nasty on you.
People may not want that to be made.
You know, those are the so you become you raise my adrenaline. You know, I want to rather be on the defensive. I become very curious. My anxiety will rise, you know, but I become very concerned, especially in the political space that we are in, and concerning regarding again the personality in question, the president of a country, somebody who has lived a political life, open political life for many years. So if he's trying to challenge that, it looks okay. But again, you now want to also argue that, well, if my records are clean, it doesn't matter what will have transpired at some point in time. It's still part of the training process. If I failed at some other point and some other point I passed, and overall, eventually I succeeded, you know, what's the big deal?
Because I mean, he did get a bachelor's according to the university.
So I mean, now think that, okay, there's no big deal, just release it. But again, I agree with what Falana SAN said, that the president is probably in the best position to tell us why he doesn't want it to be released. Otherwise, yes, we have agreed that it can be an anxious moment, you know, because I've told you I have a certificate from Chicago State University. The university has also attested to that. You know, why again are you looking for some other details? It's like, I'm bringing you to my house, I've told you where my address is, you come into my living room, but you now insist, you want to be sure that I actually live there, and you want to go into my bedroom, you know, just to be sure, you know, sometimes, you know, it can arouse some level of extraordinary curiosity. But the other danger is that the more you try to hide something, or the more you fuel
speculation.
Yeah, that's one. And secondly, the more you begin to raise people's concern regarding that thing that you do not want to reveal. People they start becoming more curious. You know, then what is it that we do not know? Yes, there have been questions in the past about some details, some identity around the president. But again, obviously, he probably has not. There hasn't been an open infraction of the law. That's why he got to where he is. So maybe we should be looking at the law really, or the process, as the case could be. You know, perhaps if there are ways in which we can increase or tighten our belts through the instrumentality of the law. You know, those are the questions that we might want to ask going forward. But for now, it seems to have been okay. The process, its efforts were salutary through the political parties, through INEC, according to their own pronouncement, and just because they permitted him to get to this stage. And so we may not really want to blame him, you know, for whatever he wants to do now in terms of preventing the release through the court again, you know, because, but obviously, like the previous speakers have said, we are in the hands of the laws, in the hands of the court. So well,
I mean, Chibuzor, let me come to you, because there is, I think you touched on this earlier, and I think that Femi Falana also kind of briefly touched on it, which is beyond the legalese and what is my right and what isn't my right. There are people who are calling on Nigerians to demand from the president that he releases authentic academic records, because, as you said, it's a very important point which could have all kinds of implications for the security of this country, for the image of this country, and so on and so forth, and for Nigerians to feel, particularly in a disputed election, that the person who eventually acceded to the throne deserves to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as much as that is expected and could help assuage a number of issues, we have just come out from a very divided elections, a very polarized election. Even the demands you're going to make now, no matter the Nigerian that will be making that demand, you're surely going to have a political tag because we are dealing with a political situation. Nobody will be able to accept that these are genuine, demands for the president to naturally, put out his records. We have a country that is, highly intellectual. We have a number of people with levels of degrees. This shouldn't be a problem because it has a lot of implications for those who may want to, hang on it to play other kind of metropolitan state affairs, on the sovereignty of the country. But I think that it's also a good call. But the president, like I said, our laws didn't envisage a situation where we'll be dealing with someone who stood outside of the shores of Nigeria. And where the laws there confers right of privacy on you as matters of your records. In Nigeria, just a court pronouncement, we allow for those records. But again, also, like what Prof highlighted, we don't know the extent of academic records. There are several
I can tell you that my academic records, I wouldn't want it to, because there are certain comments that have been made there that I may not want people to know.
We need to know specifically the kind of academic records. Is it the qualifying document that helps you to gain admission? Is it the transcript of what happened? Because if you look at the judgment, there were issues raised around the person who authorized the first certificate. And at the time of that particular authorization, that individual was not a member of the management staff of the university. So maybe those are the kind of things they want to look at. But it is good that the president put, because the election, highly divided, a close call, legitimacy issues still subsist. So it's good that the president, beyond the PDP or any political party, tries to, put an end to this. And
I think that's a very sound point. Nevertheless, beyond all of that, I mean, because we're going to have to move on and wait till Monday to see what happens. But I mean, beyond that, just in terms of the optics, I mean, the president sounds very literate. If you ask me, just listening to him talk, listening to him articulate his thoughts, that certainly sounds like someone who has a university degree at the very least. Now let's move on. Let's turn our attention to Zamfara State. Prof, you were here the other day. We were talking about insecurity in the southeast. Now we've had an attack in Zamfara State where gunmen have abducted a number of women. The numbers range from 20 to 24. We're not entirely sure yet. A number of female university students taken from hostels in the state capital, Gusau. Some reports suggesting, as I said, quite a few were abducted. Another distressing attack on a school and another manifestation of insecurity in Nigeria.
Thank you very much. You've just you've captured it very well, and you just start to wonder, and maybe at some point you just get to your wit's end with respect to what else you want to say concerning insecurity. And what has happened is just another installment of the many cases we've been seeing, and of course there are no guarantee that it will not happen again. And it just means that the non-state actors are becoming stronger and stronger by the day, and of course again that our security agencies are probably retreating, or maybe hamstrung, or maybe prevented or impeded by one factor or the other from obliterating these people, or even nipping some of these kidnaps in the bud. And what else do you want to do other than to call on those at the commanding heights of the security agencies to up their ante once again? And of course, look at those areas where the thing is very, very frequent, and imagine new things that you can do, creative things, original things that you can do, different from the many things that you've been doing in the past that has become obviously ineffective. Then of course, maybe again, there are reports about people negotiating directly or indirectly with some of these miscreants, some of these criminals. And this may somewhat be emboldening them, making them feel intractable, and that they can do and continue to undo. So many questions that we need to really ask.
That's actually an important point you raise. Let me come to you, Chibuzor, because The extraordinary thing is that this is not the first time that this kind of attack has happened at that federal university, Gusau. I understand it's the 4th attack in the last 9 months. So you have to wonder why, given this succession of attacks, the government has not apparently come up with ways to better protect the students.
Well, that is quite unfortunate. If you look at our design of security architecture, there seems to be nothing out there for soft targets, because these miscreants and criminals have been focusing on soft target time and time again. The university system I know very well, especially public university, you've got internal security people there. In the hostel, you have a porter, you have the hostel supervisor. So we shouldn't even have the case of we don't know the number of people that have been kidnapped. In the same university, you could have security officials attached to the vice chancellor. But meanwhile, the student don't have any kind of protection.
Yeah, that is
so
true.
We have this, and also many people have argued about the political economy of security and insecurity in Nigeria. That 2024 budget is coming. If we don't have insecurity problems, maybe the security agency will not be able. So, and these are something we need to interrogate properly, because we have been on this for several years and nothing seems to be happening. Look at what happened in the southeast now, you know, in the university in Zamfara. So we need to have a design that is focused on soft targets. If you go to different establishments, you see police officers in businesses, in banks, and all that. But in the university, since we started having this banditry and terrorism, especially in the Northwest, we have not done anything to deliberately deploy, you know, protective measures, or even brief the students that on security alerts and kind of measures, or even alarms to trigger, you know, such issues, so there could be immediate intervention, and maybe they will not be able to whisk away the number of people, you know, they did.
Yes.
So, like Prof said, those are the commanding posts should be able to explain to Nigerians, you know, what is going on.
And of course, Prof, we've got in the same Zamfara state the death, the killing apparently of that Voice of Nigeria journalist, whose body I think was found in his just behind his house somewhere. I'm just wondering, with the same state, but also the same university, as we're talking about, targeted so many times. I mean, imagine how heavily that would have weighed on the female students who have had to continue with their studies with that threat hanging over them.
Yeah, we've had so many of these cases in the past, Charles. The tragedy is that you will say not much effort has been made, you know, subsequently to prevent reoccurrence. We once had this, you know, there's a university in Mubi, I think. There's a university in Mubi at the time when Boko Haram's onslaught was on the crescendo, when it was continuing. And they came into Mubi and they practically sacked that university. I'm not sure if that university is back on steam now, you know, but it's not something that is just happening, you know. And so if the university's Goso is somewhat being affected too, yeah, I'm not going to be surprised if it's going to affect academics, you know, continuous, you know, the free flow of academic calendar, as the case could be in that university, because in the past we haven't seen commensurate effort being taken by agencies, you know, to prevent a reoccurrence, you know. But again, it's really tragic, and of course we have to continue to emphasize this, that, you know, rising cases of insecurity is something that needs to probably make us declare a kind of state of emergency, not just in the entire country, but perhaps in states that have become flashpoints. Zamfara is one, I think. Maybe Kebbi, maybe Kano, maybe Borno. Of course, there's nothing wrong with some levels of emergency. You know, it may not be that kind of the constitutionally stated emergency that require the sacking of the governors, because this is what actually scares them most of the time. And people at the center often lack the political will to go all the way.
Okay.
But again, you know, some kind of emergency means increased security attention in the states that have become flashpoints, as the case could be.
Thank you very much indeed. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi is a current affairs analyst, professor of communications at Bayes University in Abuja, and Chibuzor Okereke, thank you very much indeed. He's a public policy analyst. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again next week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, bye-bye and thank you for